So one of the big aspects of cleaning is I have to deal with all of this aluminum, which as you can see has tarnished and kind of gotten kind of rough. Now I have actually gone over some of this already, and this is all cleaned up. This is nice and super smooth. All of these plastic bits here aren't really so much cracked. Okay, it is cracked here, but they're all kind of like this, like they do clean up good. There are a couple of pieces, I'm not sure what the hell happened to them. Like, they're not degraded. They're actually quite stiff. I wouldn't say they're brittle because it's not breaking right now. But some of them didn't survive. But it's the metal that has cleaned up really well in most of the places so far. And I haven't even had to take a buff wheel on this. But it is very labor intensive. This all has to be done by hand. All of these pieces here, they all have to be taken out. They all have to be washed. And then they have to be all hand polished. Not perfectly, but just enough that I'm able to get a lot of that roughness out of it here. And thankfully, like this side here seems to be a little bit more intimidating, but I want to see if I can try and at least get this portion here cleaned up today. As you can see, I did experiment a little bit. Now we have to do the rest. And it's interesting, IBM actually made this somewhat easy to service. I'm kind of expecting, like, to get this out, I'd have to remove shafts and all this here. No, it's pretty straightforward. Easy! Yeah, so like I said, just comes off with a couple of screws. I do have to take the reader unit off and watch out for this little pin here, but I've already gone through and cleaned this portion, and again it shows that, sure, this all looked terrible when we first got it, but always look more than just skin deep. All the surfaces that were exposed to Houston's air looks like this, but let me trip the main clutch. I think I got it there. And just start turning the belt. No, I did not get it. There we go. I should be able to... Ah, there it goes. So yeah, once we start turning these by hand, very quickly, the aluminum surfaces clean completely up. And so I can see that, yeah, if it wasn't facing out into the air, like, it's still great. So this is just dirty and just needs to be cleaned. Now this stuff here, I'm not going to take off, but I will take this moment while it's dismantled to just verify everything turns freely, and it is. And there's a couple of spots here I can throw some oil, a couple of spots in here where I can throw a bit of grease. I'll just quickly verify here that it locks up again, and it did, so it did one rotation absolutely fine. Alright, let's go work on that other piece. Okay, you know what, now that I've spent 2 minutes here working on this here, actually I've decided I'm going to leave this in place. So this is exactly the same as the output hopper in that the back piece and the side pieces are separate pieces that are actually all screwed together. So you can dismantle this into 3 separate pieces and clean them individually. But there's a lot more going on this side here, and some of the screws, actually the card picker here hides one of the screws here. I don't want to dismantle the card picker. So I am going to clean this one in its place. Same thing as what we're going to be doing here, just instead of me being able to work on it on a table, I'm just going to work on it here. And for getting all the junk and dirt out of this here, instead of being able to use a wire brush or something like that. By the way, for all of this here, don't use a steel or a brass brush. I use these cheap, crappy, stiff nylon bristle brushes here. Brushes, there we go. And that can actually get a lot of the junk out of there as it is, and then it's easier to get in there and clean that. So I'm going to leave that there, and we are going to take these along with the output hopper. By the way, this here does have a spring preloaded roller on it, so that was a bit of a nasty surprise. Oh, it's spring loaded! But let's take this stuff here, let's take the other bits, and let's go and clean that up. Now, like I mentioned once before, these are very nice in that they come apart very easily. So you take out a couple of screws, boom. So that's one side. And if we take apart the other set of screws, boom. There goes the other side. When we take off some screws here, boom, off that comes. Which leaves us really with this here,
With a little bit of effort, I was able to get our label plate off, so we won't damage that. We can put it off to the side, and we'll just use a contact cement to reattach it. The switch, on the other hand, which says when the hopper is full, that was a bit of a different story. As I removed it, I broke it. So I think what happened here, looking at what's at this, is that just kind of moving to the side snapped off one of the little tiny keepers that holds the metal part of the switch on there. But it seems the other side broke off many years ago, considering how dirty that is. And I do have that little piece of plastic. So what I'm going to try and do off camera is I'm going to go and glue that back on with this all attached. And I bet you I can make this work. You can do the baking powder thing to try and false up the other side there, and we'll be totally okay. Anyways, so we are left with these pieces here. I'm going to put that off to the side for the moment, and we're going to have this piece right here. Now, I thought to myself, how exactly should I clean and polish this? You don't necessarily want to polish it. We don't need a mirror smooth finish. This was a nice brushed finish on it here, and if I use steel wool or brushes or really anything like that, it's a good chance I'm going to damage that and ruin the piece. I actually did end up buying this polishing set here, and then, well, looking back at it now, I don't really need this. What we're doing here doesn't require this level of polishing. So instead, I dug around, and I keep this little can here of very old turtle wax chrome polish and rust remover. I don't know the date on this thing here, but to give you an idea, it does have a barcode. It's from Canadian Tire. Someone got it in North Vancouver, and I don't see a price tag, or I don't see a price on this. This is just a price tag, so you'd have to have the cashier tell you what the price is on this thing here. But this paste here, I use it on my car for all the chrome trim pieces, and it works fantastic for this here. So my bet is that really any chrome polish, and I'm pretty sure modern turtle wax chrome polish is exactly the same way. I'll show you with this piece here. Otherwise, it'll be a machine in making every single piece here nice and pretty. Is I'll just take a rag, and I like to get myself piles of cheap, dirty rags. Let's take our paste and start rubbing. And it's taking off a lot of the tarnish. And I can also feel already, this is still really rough, but down here is already smoothing out a bit. So I'm going to work on this for a bit more. There's no point recording this because it's just going to be me rubbing and rubbing and rubbing and rubbing, and I'll get back to you once I clean this up a bit more. There we go. So this took about 10 minutes to do here, and as you can see, it looks really good. It does still have a little bit of weird staining going on here, and that's just where the corrosion and tarnishing got a little bit deeper into the brushed metal look that this has. But other than that, like, it's smooth now. There's no rough spots. So I would consider this here good enough. Considering the Keypunch itself is still kind of, worn, and yeah, I'm okay with that piece there. So what I'll do is I will now move on to the other piece here. And quite simply, with the snap of a finger, it's done. So this side here is, it's got a couple of small imperfections, but other than that, it's now smooth, it's polished, so we're ready to move on. Now, the last big piece I'm going to do here, I'm going to actually do a time lapse for you, since, well, snapping my fingers and just jumping ahead isn't really showing you exactly how much effort is done in this. So here's the big piece here. It won't go apart any further, and I have to clean all of this up. So, with a little bit of paste on there already, let's get to it. So this here is after a couple of minutes of polishing just right here. And as you can see, it's already a lot better than the side that I haven't actually cleaned up yet. And you might be able to see, depending on the light, this area here had a weight that was sitting in the way, so this never really got tarnished. And you can actually still see there is a dividing point between what I've just cleaned and what is actually perfect. I am not sure what I'm going to do with that there. Well, let's keep working on this. And there we go. It looks significantly better. It looks miles better. Okay, maybe not the back side, but the front side of this thing looks absolutely fantastic. So let's go and finish off with these last couple of bits here. Okay, or not. How about this? Since my batteries are all about to die on me here, let's cut forward a bit to everything being cleaned up and everything being put right back onto the card punch again. Okay, off to it. Alright, so now we've got this all cleaned up here as well. We can put this back in. Now, remember, when I pulled this thing out, it made a rather ridiculous noise, and that's because it's spring-loaded here. I can't hold this gear in one place. It'll always reset. So, as a result, if I go and push it in, it's just going to spring itself back out again. But there's an opening right here on the side. So I'm going to put that in there, try and center it, and then I'm going to put in a screwdriver and turn it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll do it 8 for good measure. Let it go. And there we go. Now, did it center itself? Looks like it's centered. Yeah, and there we go. And it goes right back there. Now if I put the lock pin on the end here, which is also used to act as an end stop, so I'll put that in. And then tighten it. There we go. Now I can pull this back. and it locks in place. And also, notice how it's not squeaking. Perfect. And by the way, I didn't even end up greasing any of this. Just lubricating the shafts inside of this was all we needed to make it work perfectly again. Now I noticed when I took this piece out here for the end cap that the threads in here are trashed. So I have a feeling this has come off several times and the threads are just ruined on it. Even this is all mangled up pretty nasty. So instead of having just a screw and a washer, it actually has a screw, a washer, and a tiny little nut. So when I put this in, oh, where did that go? There it is. When I put it in, sure, I can leave it like that, but it's just going to pop on the threads. So you put the nut in underneath. Where is it? There it is. And that tightens it down. And we'll do the same with the other side. Done. There we go. And here we are. So the entire path has now been polished. The entire path has been cleaned. In theory now, we should be able to pass a card through here. We can't punch it right now because we're still working on the rest of it. And there's a lot of contacts that we're going to have to deal with. But we can still do a test nonetheless. In order for us to do this, we need some cards. The card stock that came with the punch is not in any condition for us to be testing this with. Plus, it's absolutely filthy. Thankfully, I have a small stock of brand new IBM 5081 part punch cards. These are completely blank, and for the sake of this testing here, this will do exactly what we need. So I am just going to almost drop them off camera. Here we go. And I'm going to put them into the hopper. Release, and now it's in. There we go. Now I've also gone and I've wired up the motor in this thing. It's 120 volts. There's nothing special. The starter switch for it is hiding behind the output hopper over here. But I'm on my favorite little foot pedal, so I can turn it off quite quickly, and it turns on, and it sounds okay. I mean, it's making a bit of noise here from the agitator, but fine. So cards are in there. So let's trip the solenoid, and it should feed a card down in here. It might get jammed because of those rollers. Oh, it did alright. Ugh. There we go. What happened there? Okay, take two on that there. I don't think I had the cards properly sitting in there, so we'll trip it. And it came down. And it's left these black marks here, so the rollers are still unhappy. Okay, actually, let's just take these out, because I only need one for now. There we go. So it's not in the registered position for the punch, so if I trip it again, whoop, there's my hand, it should register, and it registered. Good. Now, I push this solenoid down here, and that should make it pass through the reader, and it does, and it goes through, and now it's here, waiting to be registered into, or did I say, yeah, the punch. This is the reader, so if I push this lever right here, it should try and register into the reader, and it did. Good. Okay, so I do believe I push on this solenoid again. Yes, and it goes through the reader, and now I can register it into the output tray again with this lever. There we go. And now it should stack if I trip this solenoid. Yes! Okay. So, there we go. We've cleaned it up enough that we can now get cards to go through it. Now comes the fun part with all the fine little electronics inside of this thing. Like relays, contacts, and just... But that's enough for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching this, and until next time, Have a good one.